Hello, welcome to the Crownsmen Show. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Joining me is Gowdy Molina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Okay, so I try to tell guests. You look at me like I think I'm going to say something crazy. No, nothing wacky. I always try to tell guests get videos.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, usually there's not a time frame for them.
Right.
Our guest today, Ground Force Worldwide, has videos of their facility, of their equipment in operation. It's absolutely beautiful. So I'm very excited to have them on the show. They are a manufacturer of mining support equipment. And I like that term as well. Luke Stavros is the president. So we get to talk to the guy at the head of the ship.
Yeah.
So lots to cover. Gowdy, before we do any of that, who's sponsoring us today?
All right. So today we have Precision Bolting. Precision Bolting's products have been a trusted solution for over 35 years, used by hundreds of clients across all industries, including major heavy equipment manufacturers. Equipment like mining trucks to shovels, pumps to conveyors, turbines to heat exchangers are only a few. Precision Bolting should be the first call for anyone wanting to address difficult bolting issues, including a range of kitted bolting solutions used around the world. Precision Bolting's values of safer, sooner, and stronger become immediately obvious. Give their team a call, connect with them on LinkedIn, or visit them at precisionbolting.com and miningkitsolutions.com. You can also catch their episode featuring their president, Ken Gamroth, on The Crownsmen Show. And speaking of the Crownsmen Show, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and be a part of the show. You can contact us, info@crownsmen.com, to be a guest. And last but not least, Power Zone. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with Power Zone. Visit them at powerzone.com. All righty.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Luke, welcome to the show. Excited to have you on. I've got a special place in my heart for anything mining related, especially when it gets to the big stuff that's on these sites. So glad to have you on the show.
Hey, happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Let's try to do that quick coverage. We're going to dig in. You've got lots of videos. We're going to show your manufacturing facility. But what are you delivering to customers?
Well, we build and design and sell mining, solutions, mostly in the range of support equipment. We deal in the range of fuel and lube, water solutions, cable reel type handling systems, and a few other, custom, type products specifically related to heavy duty mining applications around the world.
Yeah, I was noticing there's quite a range. Like when I'm looking at your what are they called? The lube trucks and that. There's quite a range of size. On the lower end, could those be used in other applications, or is everything you build in that mining commercial grade level?
Everything is built for a mining type application, but there is definitely some crossover that goes into a construction application or to contractors. Most of those customers actually do contract mining type work. So in some way, shape, or form, it ends up being, in a mining type application or a heavy duty construction application. Yeah.
I actually got on to Ground Force because I saw there was on LinkedIn, there was a post. It was a giant rock box. Wow. With a giant Canadian flag. You're actually an American company, but you're servicing a lot of Canadian clients as well. Is that right?
Absolutely. I'd say on an average year, we do more business in Canada than we do actually in the U.S. Market. But yeah, that was a fun project. I imagine we're going to talk about that a little bit, but yeah, to be able to take a 250 ton size dump body in a mine site application, put a massive, Canadian flag emblem on the side, both sides of that body was pretty spectacular. We got a lot of hits on social media from that.
I bet. Including from me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it kind of led me to a question I was wondering about a company like yours. And I'm always curious when I see, companies that manufacture just just stuff big. Is it, how much of it is pre-manufactured and how much is custom? Like, for instance, that rock box, is that, did you get specs for that, or is that a standard for that machine? Like, where does it sort of land?
We've been in business for a little over 30 years. And when we first started, we kind of prided ourselves on, everything was custom. But over the years, we've learned that doesn't always lend itself to a high level of credibility and confidence in our customers, especially when you're talking about, something as critical and as rugged as a mine site application. So they like to know that you've got repeatability, you've got consistency with the designs. And so over the years, we've developed, what we call our Big Five product line, and we have standard configurations and layouts for everything. But there's always that somewhere between 10 to 20% customization that's really important for us and our customers, so that they feel like we're really speaking to their needs, because not all mine sites are created equal, and there are different, mine site, needs and specifications that are required. And we do our best to listen to our customers and meet those needs. So I'd say, in general, we're about 80% standard and 20% custom.
When did you start really doing that pivoting to developing more standard? Because it does make sense, especially for these major mine operations, that you need standardized products, or else they can't commit to them. They got to know it's going to be the right thing, the exact same thing that they got last time.
Yeah.
When did you, I guess, first become aware, and when did that pivot start happening to make sure that you could provide that pre-manufactured product?
Yeah, I would say it was about 15 years ago, we developed a standard for every product line. Up until that point, we were developing, it was all one-off type stuff. So it was the very first, 240 ton size Fuel Lube truck, or the very first 320 ton size dump body for us. And so it was truly custom because we hadn't built one before. But I'd say in the last 15 years, we've really done well with standardizing all the product lines.
Does some of that carry over? It's an old industry, that some of these mines, do some people still not realize that you do have those product lines, or is the industry, is it pretty well known now?
It is pretty well known now. Yeah. I'd say about 25 years ago, there wasn't a lot of competition in some of the areas that we dabble in. But today there's good competition, globally. So we've really got to be on our toes.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Makes the products better for everybody at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Is there products? I want to get into some of your standardized products, but you've also done some innovative products. You've got some videos that I was watching. Is there sort of one that stands out for you that's sort of the flagship of where you've innovated as a company?
I'd say we're most known globally for building, the world's finest fuel and lube trucks and water tank solutions for dust, suppression applications there. But I would say most notably in the last 5 years, from an innovation standpoint, would be our rock spreaders. And the rock spreader business for us is something that is primarily in colder applications. We do a ton of business in the stand countries. We call it the CIS market, also in Russia. We've got several bodies like this that are operating in Canada, both Western and Eastern Canada, and we've got some big projects that are on the go right now. But these are, ultra class size mining trucks converted over to what we call rock spreaders or haul road conditioning units. And basically, the principle is simple. You load the bodies with a pre-screened and washed crushed material, and you dispense it on the haul roads through two different chutes, and they feed the rear drive tires, so you get traction on the mine sites. But you're also doing what typically would take 3 machines, and you're doing it with essentially one. So the efficiency gains and the return on investment is huge for our customers.
What I hope this isn't too tricky of a question. What makes one rock spreader better than the other? How do you standardize it? That amount it spreads, the efficiency that it that it delivers the material out, doesn't get clogged. Like, sort of, what is the standard of quality?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good question. There's a lot that factors into that. Like I said before, if you have the opportunity to eliminate, 1 or 2 pieces of equipment that would typically be required to do a job, and you can handle it with one, you've got less capitalized costs, you've got less, maintenance, you have less operators. And so the efficiency gains and the return on that investment start to calculate and scale pretty darn quickly. And so those are the things that we look at, but we always do a site evaluation with our customers. So we want to get onto the site, understand current practices, and sometimes our solutions aren't the right solution, for that particular customer. So we're not all things to everybody, but in those environments where they are maybe lacking in some of those efficiency gains, we want to bring those to them through our products.
You're going to find some layman questions if you've ever watched any of the show.
Yeah.
They do come up.
Yeah.
And I've got to wonder, that's attaching to a rock truck, obviously. So when that process starts, do they buy one specifically for what you're going to put on it, or do you have different sizes so that they have a rock truck that they're going to convert?
Mhm.
Like, what is there sort of a standard procedure?
Yeah, for the most part, our bodies would go on, especially the rock spreaders would go on to an existing chassis that's at the mine site. And one of the things that we do, we use the same operating and control system for our water tankers as we do our rock spreaders. And so they're interchangeable based on season, requirements and applications. So in theory, and most customers run it this way, is they'll run our water tanks in the summertime. In the colder shoulder seasons or in the winter months, they'll run the rock spreader. And so that chassis, that asset, that rolling stock, if you will, for the customer is continually, being utilized in an effective way at the mine site.
That's interesting. So yeah, like maybe it wasn't a terrible question actually, because I thought
Yeah,
that
no,
was
it was
an
a great
interesting
question.
answer.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, okay, I want to talk a little bit about your main product line, Luke,
Yeah.
just because I think it's easy on these interviews, and I get a little obsessed with a certain topic, and then I'll just go at it. But you're doing so many product lines. I don't want that to happen. So you kind of already touched on. You've kind of got 4 or 5. What are the main ones, and then let's talk about each one of those for a little bit.
Sure. I would say that over 80% of our business is fuel and lube, water, dump bodies, and the rock spreaders. And the fifth product line that we have, which is probably closer to 10% or less of our business, would be the cable handlers. But the big four, if you will, would be fuel and lube, water, dump bodies, and the rock spreaders. So that would be the landing spot.
I was looking at the Fuel Lube solutions,
Yeah.
and I noticed on one link it said, well, the URL is actually rigid frame Fuel Lube trucks. And so I'm assuming rigid is something to do with strength. So is there, even though it's all for mining, is there different types of bodies based on, like, is it different environments that they're going to be in, or how do you sort of rate what tank goes where?
Yeah. So the rigid frame trucks could be an ultra class, mining size truck, but it could also be an over the highway called a class 8 type truck. So a Western Star, Peterbilt, Kenworth. And we certainly build a fair share of those. But what we're most known for is building, ultra class, converting ultra class mining trucks. We'll say 150 ton size all the way up to 240 ton size, converting that truck into a fuel and lube module, which would go into, the operations of a mine site and then be the primary fueling and lubing distribution unit for the haul truck fleet and also for some of the support equipment. So that would be the rigid frame size truck. The articulated chassis by far is our number one seller. We built more than roughly 350 units in the last 20 years, and they operate in about 70 different countries. So that's our global spread as a global company. But and those articulated chassis are very nimble, very versatile. They can get around in some very soft and undulating underfoot conditions. And so we basically tap into the advantages that the major OEMs like Caterpillar and Komatsu have already designed into those truck chassis. And we just take those trucks and give them a different application. So the mine sites are used to running those types of trucks anyway. So there's parts commonality. The operators know how to utilize and drive and operate those vehicles. We just give them a second life or a different application. And there's a safety factor there also that plays in.
The On something like this, there's the pre-manufactured, and then 20 years ago it was primarily custom. Now there's some
Yeah.
pre-manufactured element with some customization. But does the product line change, like the Fuel Lube solutions 5 years ago? Is it different than it is today, or does that standardized hold up as technology continues to evolve?
There's definitely some elements that are different. I would say trucks are generally speaking bigger today, and the mine sites continue to expand their footprint in the number of vehicles that are operating in a mine site. And so as that continues, as the rigid frame trucks retire out of an operations fleet, we'll convert that over to, a fuel and lube or even to a water tank. So I would say in general, our truck bodies continue to get larger and there's more of them at the mine sites. The articulated trucks, primarily stay in the same, they're primarily servicing dozers, graders. They're running around the mine sites constantly getting into some softer, more challenging underfoot conditions.
Right.
But in the operations side of the business, trucks are getting bigger and so are we.
The On the water solutions side, I've kind of got a new interest of it. We featured Nelco Water on, and they're providing these solutions for bringing down dust and things like
Yeah.
that. Chemical solutions and all that.
Mhm.
I would assume these water solutions, that is part of it as well. They're actually
Yeah.
using to spread chemicals to keep the dust down consistently and things like that. Is that right?
For us, we haven't really gotten too much into the chemical application other than a fire foam type of a system, which a lot of our tanks have on it for acting as a first responder. But for the most part, it's just, traditional, dust suppression by putting water on the haul roads.
Right.
But we have, water utilization is very critical. There's a shortage of water in most mine sites, as you can imagine, doing business in some of the remote parts of the world that we do. In some places, there's not very much water at all. And so we have to be very conscious about water delivery and how much we're putting on the ground. And so we have some innovative solutions there with ground speed delivery systems and water monitoring and tracking metering systems so that we can monitor a very precise amount of water. And that's critical because you can also cause a safety hazard by putting too much water on the ground in certain areas. And so it's a very precise application, and that's something we're very proud of.
On units like that, if you're going onto a mine, I mean, obviously there's not a standard. Some need more, some need less. But do you ever just
Yeah.
sell one, or these units? Is it always multiple units when you're looking at water and those types of things, lube, that standard of product line? Is it always 3, 4 units at least?
I would say that most are multiple, but there are some transactions, if you will, that are a single unit. But thankfully, we have very, very, high level of customer satisfaction. And so it might take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and then we'll get another repeat business, a repeat order at that particular mine site. So I'd say most are, there are multiple transactions.
Well, you said the cable reel handlers were not. I think you said what you said about 10% of your business.
Yeah, it's a little bit smaller percent of our business. Yep.
But does it but there I mean, that every site must need that as well. So are they getting coupled with a lot of projects? So they're maybe you don't need 20 like you do for the water solution, but you do need one or two, or is that the reason, or is it just you're more known for the water and the lube delivery?
Yeah, cable handlers are primarily for managing trailing cable on electric rope shovels. And so not every mine site has an electric rope shovel. A lot of them have hydraulic shovels. And so, that would be a limiting factor for us. Whereas the other product lines carry over regardless. Doesn't
Right.
matter what type of a loading tool that they use. They all need fuel, they all need water and all that type of stuff. So there's a limiting factor based on equipment that are used there. Um, Internationally, it's a product that there's a lot of strong local designs. A lot of mine sites develop their own and do it that way. Um, and Yeah, so there's some limiting factors there.
Right. One of the limiting factors that I was curious about, again, I do want to take a moment to talk about your facility in a bit,
Yeah.
was just the sheer size of the units that you're shipping. Do these always get shipped out? I was looking on your website. It looks like they're leaving your facility completely already. made. So is that getting, I mean, you're shipping all over the world. Is that getting
Yeah.
delivered that way? Or do some of them get pieced together on site?
I'd say about 80% of what we build ships out in one piece. 20% is compartmentalized, and so we'll typically, build it all in one piece, but it will be designed with the integral factor to be, broken down into 3 or 4 or 5 different pieces, for international transport. But for North America, primarily everything that we do is shipped out in one piece, which makes for pretty cool, pictures and videos, going across the highway like you saw.
And a slow ride when you get behind one of those.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we had Kayla in manufacturing, and they build the chassis and all that to haul these
Yeah.
big manufactured products to all these sites. It's pretty wild what goes into
Yeah.
actually making just the trailers to be able to haul these things.
Yeah.
Um, you're as a global company, like how often, if you're dealing, and maybe there's an example you could come up with, how often are you putting together, 3, 4 your product lines, and then, doing assessment, figuring out what they need, manufacturing, and then shipping it globally? Is it
Mhm.
usually one product, or are there examples where you're using 3 or 4 of your product lines to just one customer?
Yeah, I mean, to give you a couple specific examples, that dump body that you saw delivered to a customer in Western Canada, we put a fleet of 18 of those bodies together for that particular customer.
Wow.
But they also were customers of ours for Fuel Lube, water, and rock spreaders. And so out of the 5 core, product lines that we build, they were customers for 4 out of the 5. And when it was all said and done, I think we built maybe 25 pieces of equipment for them this last year. In Western Africa was a big part of our business this last year also, and we had one customer that we built 16 products for. So yeah, and in that 16 product line, or that 16 count order, I think we had 3 different product lines established there.
When you're dealing with something, because it's such a, you're right in the heart of what their business is doing. Is there a lot of developing a relationship beforehand, or something like West Africa? Are they Googling and you come up and then they reach out? Or I mean, what's the process of something? I mean, that's a huge investment for them.
Hmm.
It's a huge reliance on that you're going to deliver on time and be able to
Yeah,
ship it and all this. There's so much. I used to work in equipment, so
yeah,
I know. And you're even dealing with bigger stuff than I ever dealt with.
yeah.
So where does that relationship even start for something like that?
Well, sometimes those relationship takes, years to establish.
Mm,
Um, and in the past, that's been through, a lot of travel. We have a very capable and competent, sales team here and product support team that does an incredible job of reaching the ends of the earth and going out and traveling, sometimes, 70, 80% of the time. So they make a lot of sacrifices, for our organization, for our company, and for the betterment of their family, being able to provide for them. But relationship-based selling is primarily, the difference maker for us. Sometimes those deals take, 3 or 4 or 5 years to establish, and sometimes they're much quicker. Um, but relationships by far are the number one key to our success, our relationships with our customers. But it's also supported and backed with an incredible product line that's, designed very integral. We've got a great reputation, and we have the ability to support our products incredibly well with parts and service. So you put all that together, and that's really what makes up, what we call the ground force difference.
you're we don't know each other that well, but I've got a chance to talk to you a couple times and just sort of see that you come across as someone who's very confident in your team and your product lines, but there's still in your business, it is such a big order. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is in our business, if somebody says no to doing a show for us, we've got 10 other people we're talking to that are going to jump
Hmm.
on board. So we have to
Yeah.
work really hard to do it, but there's so many opportunities to win.
Hmm.
Whereas in
Yeah.
your business, you don't have 1,000 chances.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of deal with that pressure as a leader? You've got people, I just did a show earlier this morning talking about the responsibility of leaders. And how do you deal with that pressure? Because there's no way there isn't that pressure when you're
Hmm.
an order of 20 units is a huge
Yeah.
order.
Yeah.
How do you approach that?
Well, market share is really important for us. Um, and in a challenging year like this last year for everybody globally,
Hmm.
there wasn't a lot of new developing, mine sites and operations. So what do? You focus on some of the business that maybe you're losing to some of your competitors. And so you go after, you go on an aggressive campaign to take over market share. Thankfully, um, we've got great reputation, globally, and we've got, a sales team that's competent and they understand where those markets are. And we did what we call old school selling, dialing for dollars. We picked up the phone, we contacted customers, we did a ton of Zoom calls, Teams calls. We stayed in front of our customers this last year, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. Um, so it's just knowing where those opportunities are, and staying in front of it. We have incredible relationships with, Komatsu and Caterpillar at the corporate level. So we're in tune with where, the developing operations are, globally. And so we can kind of follow their lead and move that direction. And we work with the distributor base, primarily through, the Caterpillar and the Komatsu dealers as well. And so they're an extension of us, and so that also yields, success maybe through, some challenging times.
Right. What part of it do you enjoy the most, Luke? Is it maintain those relationships, even those challenging times? You enjoy that sort of rising to the occasion?
I find so much of it rewarding. My background is primarily in sales and customer interface, and so I enjoy earning business, the old-fashioned way. Competing against our competitors who are very capable and they're smart and they're innovative and all that type of stuff. And so, we don't necessarily keep score, but when we win the deal, that's something that we celebrate.
Yeah.
I also enjoy, the heart of our business here, which is the manufacturing side and the relationships. We've got 115 employees here. We've got a beautiful facility, and I know each and every one of our employees by name. I know their families, know their background. We care about our employees. We love our employees. We love our community. So um, when we have success, we also give back to our community. And so I'd say, I enjoy and I love all aspects of our business that way.
Yeah, it's amazing what you're doing out there, and switching over to the facility.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that the manufacturing side of it? Because two questions, just general. What is your facility? The sort of the I see that there's all these overhead cranes, and then it's. We'll bring the video up to show it.
Yeah.
Um, but then part two of that is how do orders sort of all come in at once, and how do you deal with that? And is your facility equipped to deal with that sort of that backlog that must happen in your business?
Yeah. We're definitely not order takers. When we earn the business and we win the business, we have to play, the game of trying to figure out, where it's going to fit in the production schedule. So,
Yeah.
for a company like us, a company might have 6 months or longer worth of backlog of business, but you want to capitalize on every one of those opportunities. And so there is definitely a shuffling around, and trying to, figure out staffing levels appropriately to be able to manage, the workload. Hiring people, training people, there's a cost to doing all of that. And so we have a very capable, competent team here, a world-class team, I think, in being able to put all that together. So it's not easy, but we get it done, and happy to do it.
What about location? Because you're in the US, but you're right on the Canadian border, essentially. Is that right?
Yeah, we're in a beautiful town, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. If you're in Western Canada, in Calgary, Edmonton, Fort McMurray, and so forth, you get our local news. Spokane, Washington would be the nearest, large city. Schweitzer Ski Resort. We have beautiful golf courses around here, so it's a great place to raise a family, a great place to run, operate, and own a business. So yeah, Coeur d'Alene is where we are, real close to the border.
So, and is that how is that as a location for just the distribution of your product once you get these orders and you're putting them out? Is that sort of right in the spot where you can? Is there any limitations when it's in way out in Eastern US or Canada? Or is that once with the size and scope of these, is that not really a
Mhm.
factor, like shipping and things like that?
It can be. I mean, anytime you're talking about a greater distance than maybe 300 or 400 miles, it starts to be problematic when you're talking about larger loads. But that's when we break the loads down into 2 or 3 or 4 multi-piece configuration to get that cost down, and then we bridge that gap and we supplement that with some field labor to be able to go out and put the thing together.
Mm.
And we have some creative discounting measures to be able to take care of that. So I'd say if you were asking me, could you pick a place that would be better regionally located to service Canada and the US market, I would say no.
Yeah, no, I was looking at it on the map and I was like, that's pretty good. And then
Yeah.
like ports and that, what would be the closest ports for you when you're dealing with like Western Africa and places like
Yeah.
Russia and those kind of places?
Uh, we ship out of Seattle, Tacoma, Washington, and also Houston. Those would be the two primary ports that we ship out of.
The business like this, is it when you say you have deal relationships with companies like Caterpillar and Komatsu, and then you're so you how much the specifications, how much is coming from your design, the customer, the manufacturing the manufacturer of the trucks, how does that all come together? Because that in itself is sort of a fascinating process.
Yeah, our bodies, 100% of the design is ours. We control the intellectual property. But when you partner with Caterpillar and Komatsu, the design of our bodies has to be integral to the truck chassis and its original design intent. So they have what they call application guides, and we have non-disclosures and agreements signed with both. And so there's a free flow of information going back and forth all the time on our body designs and their chassis designs. So we make sure that the weight distribution, the safety factors and all that type of stuff are baked into the design so that we're never compromising, the integrity of the truck chassis. So there's definitely some consulting going back and forth, but our body designs are 100% ours, and we control that.
Yeah, it's last question as we wrap up the interview. In this environment where, I think out in your location, you're not really having to, put the masks on and do that whole thing. But of course you're dealing with regions that have a lot of
Mhm.
restrictions on them. Has that been a challenge for your business? Is it actually provided an opportunity? To find different ways to communicate with everyone. Sort of what's that process been like? Just to wrap things up.
Yeah, I'd say it's been different, but I think that we've navigated it very well, and I think most companies in our business have as well. There was probably the first 4 to 8 weeks where everybody was trying to figure out, okay, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to travel again or not, or how are we going to communicate with our customers? And some customers just cut off all communication with their suppliers, and so thankfully we weren't in that particular boat, but we know that there were some that were out there. um, I guess the saving grace in it all was everybody was faced with the same challenges
Yeah.
and the exact same solutions. If it was just us saying, hey, we got to find a way to cut some costs, and so we're just going to stop traveling and all that type of stuff, that would be very problematic because all of our competitors and everybody else in the industry would be doing it the traditional ways.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, we're all in the same exact boat, and I think that we used it to our advantage. And I'm probably on, I'd say no less than five and as many as 10, calls a day with customers and clients and suppliers and some of our business partners. And I know that the rest of our team here does the exact same thing. So we tried to not skip a beat and just maintain, eye contact and frontage with our customers and continue to seed those relationships.
Yeah, it's and we're hearing a lot. We realized on the show that anybody who comes on, they're sort of have that fight back mentality to find a
Yeah.
way to do it. And we noticed that now I'm not knocking people. I've noticed that a lot of people that have no interest in sort of looking at the
Yeah.
show, and I see that they're almost the most disgruntled with the challenges that are here. But then I noticed a correlation. A lot of people that, like Jody, who I originally connected with from your company, and thank you, Jody, for setting everything up. Um, there's just that openness and that sort of that, for lack of a better word, that fight back mentality. Is that something you have on purpose, or is it something you consciously, when things like this happen? I'm sure other challenges have happened over the year. Do you
Mhm.
make a conscious choice, or is that just sort of instinctive? Like, okay, we got to pivot and we got to push even harder.
I'd say it's primarily instinctive.
Mhm.
I think that I think we have an incredible team here that wants to win in so many aspects of the business, not just earning sales and winning the business that way, but we want to be successful with the overall organization and business. So if it's labor hours, if it's material cost, and hitting those two things, every single time, if it's growing certain segments of the business,
Yeah.
we measure the finite, details of our business on a regular basis. And so it's not just revenue streams, but it's the cost areas as well. And so I think that we've got an incredible senior leadership team here that leads by example. It takes a lot of pride and ownership in what they're doing. And one of our core values, of our organization is continuous improvement. And and so that's what we're striving for on a regular basis.
Well, from obviously from the outside looking in, it seems like you're accomplishing that. And if you ever get any more chances to paint giant flags on anything,
Yep.
it really catches the eye,
So we
especially
did
for
not.
a company.
Yeah, we do Australian flags, and we don't discriminate. We've done breast cancer, different cancer awarenesses and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. You tell us what you want on there. We have a very creative team led by Jody and her department that put those designs together on all of our bodies. So it's pretty cool.
Someone's going to hear that and they're
Yeah.
going to think, "Oh, really? Well, I'd like."
Yeah.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
Luke, thank you very much for coming on the show. I genuinely love this kind of product line, the manufacturing side. We've fortunately been able to do more manufacturing. I don't think we could ever do enough. It's really interesting stuff. Thank you for coming on the show, and please keep all the good work that your team is doing, especially on social media. It's fun following your company.
Outstanding. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. And you guys have a great day.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you.
Okay.
That sounds exciting because now I want. Can we get like the Crownsmen show?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Some of our partners, we need to get in
Right?
there and get someone to be like, yeah. Well, I'm trying to think of any advantage they would have to putting our logo on. Anyway,
Probably nothing.
um,
Mhm.
yeah, Gowdy, where can people follow, like, subscribe, suggest guests, make comments, whatever.
Whatever. Well, subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss this episode or any of the other upcoming episodes, and you can always watch our previous episodes. And we've got new ones coming up, 2 a week. Again, trying to grow from 2 to like 10. Joking,
2 to
not
10.
10. And follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And also contact us if you want to be a sponsor, be a guest, or you would like to suggest a guest. info@crownsmen.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Gowdy. And we'll also have links and tags for Ground Force Worldwide. Love what they're doing as a company. Make sure to follow them on LinkedIn. And, like he said it, suggest things to put on sides of trucks. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next episode of The Crownsman Show.